Men, stop proving yourself. Stop explaining. Let your quiet do the work and watch everything rearrange. You stop chasing and the atmosphere changes instantly. When your messages dry up, the emotional weather shifts. She notices the space you leave before she understands why. Your silence removes the fuel her drama runs on. Attention is energy, it was feeding her narrative. Pull it back and the scene rebalances. This isn't spite. It's a boundary enforced by calm. You weren't built to be available on demand. You were built to be steady. Every reaction you gave became a lever she could pull. Responses taught her which buttons worked. Break the pattern and the buttons lose their power. She learned to expect the same supply of feeling because you kept providing it. Now that the supply is paused, scarcity clarifies value. The absence reframes memory. Suddenly the moments you were present appear rare. That rarity changes the ledger of her heart. Silence isn't a blank page, it's a mirror with no voice. It forces a rerun of old scenes until new lines form. Without your commentary, her inner monologue gets louder. She has to process what used to be outsourced to you. Dependency shows its seams. She either stitches herself together or keeps pretending the whole isn't there. That choice exposes depth. You pull back to protect your center, not to punish. Every withheld text is a small reclaiming. Each non-reaction is a lesson in self-possession. You practice restraint not to make her suffer but to keep yourself whole. Calmness replaces haste. You stop correcting perceptions and start curating presence. Your life becomes governed by standards rather than emergency responses. Expect an initial storm. The first silence triggers testing behavior. She may post, provoke, or spin stories to get a rise. Those attempts are temporary. They are echoes of the mechanics she used. They fail against a composed man because the mechanism that fed them is gone. Tests reveal more about her wiring than about your significance. Detachment sharpens your focus. Time away from the noise clears aim. You stop measuring worth by replies and start mapping purpose. Energy conserved goes into building instead of patching. That output attracts different attention. People who wanted your surrender leave the stage. Those who notice your integrity step closer. Respect follows consistency. Remember that withdrawal is education disguised as silence. It's not a manual on how to hurt someone, it's a curriculum on how to hold yourself. The message isn't, "I don't care." It's, "I care about my peace more than your opinion." That difference matters. It reframes motives and diffuses drama. When you choose quiet, you don't erase history. You edit your future. The space you create lets truth surface. Patterns reveal themselves. Character shows where obligation used to be. And in that light, both of you see what every action really meant. Stand still. Let time do the talking. Your silence will say more about your strength than any argument ever could. You become the man who chooses himself first. And never apologizes. Energy moves people more than argument ever will. You can win every debate and still lose influence. She reacts to signals, not syllogisms. A calm look rearranges stakes faster than a long apology. Presence broadcasts what words try to explain. Emotions are tuned to tone and tempo, not to logic charts. When you change your rhythm, you change the field. She feels your temperature before she parses your reasons. That feeling decides whether she leans in or steps back. Arguments create noise. Energy creates context. You can dissect motives all day and nothing shifts until the atmosphere shifts first. Stop trying to persuade her with proofs. Start shifting the signal she receives. That's where real change lives. Your composure is the broadcast she can't switch off. Debate can justify a position. Presence makes it true. A man who stays steady rewrites expectation. She stops looking for evidence when the environment already proves you. Silence can be evidence of strength. Quiet fills the space around choices so her instincts can operate without interference. Once instincts start guiding her, logic becomes noise she can ignore. Energy rewires attention. Your unbothered state alters how memories are replayed. Moments when you remained firm get amplified. The frantic texts that used to demand answers now feel loud and secondary. The context you provide changes the weight of past exchanges. Stop over-explaining. Explanations beg for judgment. Composed inaction demands no verdict. People project onto noise, they accept presence as is. Consistency in temperament is a stronger currency than consistency in promises. Promises can be tallied and doubted. A calm pattern becomes belief without negotiation. She senses authenticity in your restraint because it doesn't seek validation. Validation is a shallow market. Authenticity trades in depth. You trade fewer words for more gravity. That gravity pulls attention differently. Others orbit what is steady. Drama chases what is anxious. Be the center, not the satellite. Pulling energy back removes leverage from every drama script she knows. Without your reactions, the script rewrites itself. She loses coordinates she relied upon to steer emotional weather. When coordinate input vanishes, autopilot fails. She must learn new navigation or crash. That learning curve is where maturity grows or decline continues. Redirected energy forces self-responsibility. She either builds an inner thermostat or keeps blaming you for the climate. You don't need to explain your absence. You need to demonstrate independence. Independence is a practice, not a tactic. When you embody it, your life reorganizes around priorities instead of panic. People respond to organized calm because it signals competence. Competence reduces questions and invites respect. If she wants your attention, she now has to earn it against a new baseline. That baseline is your peace. Peace is non-negotiable. The more you protect it, the clearer her choices become. She can either adapt or remain stuck in old patterns. Energy reveals character quicker than any argument. Stay steady and let her feel that truth. Your calm is the curriculum, her reaction is the test. The passing grade is respect earned through restraint and steady presence. Today, your attention acted like a mirror she used to check herself against. Take that mirror away and the image becomes blurry. She can't borrow your reflection anymore to feel worthy. The comfort she stole, admiration, reaction, attention, lose their anchor. Suddenly she faces herself without the echo that used to validate her. That absence forces an audit of habits she treated as permanence. People hide behind responses. When you stop replying, the costume slips. Masks fall in silence because there is no audience to applaud them. She will try to perform confidence, but performance needs applause. Without it, the show stops feeling real. The gaps expose which feelings were practiced and which were authentic. Truth has less room to hide when applause is cut. This cracks complacency. She once relied on your presence to finish her sentences. Now she must answer alone and confront what she ignored while leaning on you. Old wounds come forward because the balm of your attention is gone. Those wounds either get tended or they fester. Either outcome reveals who she truly is. Your withdrawal doesn't erase kindness you showed, it reframes it. Moments you offered presence now look like investments, not obligations. She begins to see the ledger. That accounting changes desire. Rarity raises value. Not because you became elusive on a whim, but because you stopped taking continuous deposits without reciprocity. The balance corrects itself. Silence becomes a teacher. Each quiet hour is a lesson in accountability. She learns that feelings can't be outsourced. She discovers the difference between being loved and being confirmed. Confirmation is temporary. Love, if present, survives the quiet. If it doesn't, the silence reveals that too. You didn't withdraw to score points. You withdrew to clarify reality. Your restraint makes her sift through memories and motives. She begins to separate moments that mattered from moments that entertained. That sorting is painful because it costs illusions. The silence simply demands a payment she once avoided. Expect a flurry of attempts to rewind the clock. Nostalgia is a common tactic. She will send fragments of shared history to remind you, and herself, of what felt steady. Those fragments are attempts to reconstruct the mirror. They often look genuine because memory softens edges. Soft edges can hide hollowness. Your composure tests whether nostalgia is repair or rehearsal. Notice how context changes behavior. When your attention was constant, her actions had an automatic audience. Without that audience, the same habits start to look performative. Rituals that once worked lose efficacy. That mismatch forces choice. Adapt or repeat patterns until they break. This is where authenticity either surfaces or sinks. The mirror you removed only reflected what she let show. Now she must build a reflection from scratch. That building requires honesty, patience, and discomfort. If she commits, you witness growth. If she resists, the silence becomes proof of what was never solid. Walk forward knowing this process isn't cruel. It's clarifying. The mirror was never your responsibility to hold. You simply chose to stop holding it for her. What follows is either reconstruction or revelation. Silence doesn't mean you're checked out. It means the curriculum has changed. When you stop replying, she meets herself in a way messages never allowed. The first reaction is denial. The second is construction. Without your commentary, she must answer questions she previously deflected. Those questions are uncomfortable, and discomfort forces choices. Expect theatrics. People manufacture distraction when accountability shows up. She will escalate tone, share scenes from her day, and drop lines meant to tug at memory. Those moves are attempts to reopen negotiated comfort. They are rehearsals aimed at familiarity. Tests prefer patterns. Your non-response breaks them. This pause rewrites incentives. Before drama paid. Now calm pays. Actions align with new rules or they become confessions. You didn't create chaos, you revealed its market. Once the market shifts, only participants with integrity remain. Watch for subtle probes. Messages dressed as casual updates are common. She calibrates language to map your borders. Small tests measure if patterns still hold. Replying hands power back. Silence conserves more of you. You are not immune to doubt. Moments of weakness whisper explanations. Those whispers tempt you to resume supply. Resist. Each abstained impulse compounds into steadiness. Strength is a habit built by repetition, not a single gesture. When friction vanishes, tests increase. Cheap experiments check if old mechanics still work. If they fail, escalation follows. If escalation fails, self-examination begins. Self-examination is messy. It gets messy because honesty takes effort. Accountability is private work. You didn't sign up to be a placeholder therapist. Withdrawal isn't abandonment. It's refusal to be the primary emotional engine for someone avoiding responsibility. You offer boundaries, not punishment. Boundaries give space where growth either happens or stalls. Expect history to be softened. Apologies can arrive as transactions. Those offers try to buy predictability. Accepting them without change is a cheap victory for the old script. Demand evidence or decline the purchase. This phase clarifies priorities. When you stop rescuing chaos, time returns to purpose. Energy once spent repairing moves toward goals. That redistribution shifts social gravity. People who benefited from access recalibrate and either contribute or fade. The world rewards discipline. Your language tightens. You speak less about reasons and more about outcomes. You answer facts, not emotion bait. That style models maturity and makes melodrama ineffective. Melodrama needs attention. It starves in clarity. Expect mirrors in other relationships. Her behavior becomes a lesson. You learn where you overinvested and where you underprotected peace. Apply that lesson broadly. The core rule stands: peace is non-transferable. Noise reduces with time. Test slow. The frantic reach for reactions eases. She adapts or she doesn't. Both results are useful. One opens a path back to balanced connection. The other clears room for steadier life. Hold firm. Let silence coach both of you. Withdrawal isn't theater, it's training. In that training, character shows and priorities sort themselves. Stand your ground and let quiet teach what words could not. Every withheld reply becomes a lesson in self-respect, and every maintained boundary compounds into a life that demands to be treated differently. Today, you stopped giving to prove worth and began reserving energy to rebuild. The pause forced priorities into focus. Withheld reactions returned slices of time used to train habits, not rehearse old vulnerabilities. Self-possession replaced desperation. You chose actions aligned with long-term aim instead of momentary relief. This was not retreat. It was redirection. You funneled impulse into craft, fitness, learning. Small wins added up. Your calendar became a ledger of progress, not emotional triage. You began showing up for projects, not postures. That shift changed how others valued you. The man who once sought permission from replies now granted himself allowance to lead. Decisions speeded because they were anchored in principle. You stopped negotiating worth with someone else's mood. Standards formed naturally and were enforced with quiet habit. People respected a man who did not bargain for dignity. Boundaries stopped being reactive fences and became planned architecture. You designed daily rhythms with intention. Sleep, focus, movement, work returned because you stopped bleeding energy on drama. Peace no longer depended on applause. It rooted in routine, and that root made you immovable. Growth demanded discomfort. You refused easy fixes and embraced discipline. Misunderstanding was tolerated because your life had clearer metrics than others' opinions. Patience turned from passive to strategic. Each resisted impulse added integrity. Attention became currency spent where returns were real. Relationships matching your tempo, tasks that moved the needle, rest that actually restored. Your circle refined. Networking happened around purpose, not pity. Spectacle faded. Craft remained. Confidence grew practical, not performative. You stopped selling certainty and started demonstrating consistency. Your word carried weight because it was spare and reliable. Commitment meant follow-through. That reputation opened doors and closed traps. Attraction streamlined. Calm competence drew people who preferred steadiness to chaos. Compatibility replaced volatility. This selection saved time and halted repeat cycles. You did not harden, you sharpened judgment. Empathy remained, paired with discernment. You felt without surrendering. That balance let you care without collapse. Presence healed by example rather than apology. The hardest test was resisting nostalgia. Old patterns whispered familiarity. You responded with progress, not proof. Temptation to revert met outcome checks. If the past produced imbalance, you walked forward. If it showed real change, you integrated cautiously and watched behavior more than words. Opportunities followed because focus replaced chaos. Employers, friends, and partners sense a person who manages attention. Doors open around people who own their time. You found clarity in decisions big and small. You defended your schedule with courteous firmness. Social noise thinned, replaced by meaningful work and real connection. Nights felt less restless. Weekends became restoration, not recovery. Over months, the compound effect of small discipline transformed outcomes in ways drama never could. You kept building until peace was the default, not the exception, and growth became inevitable. People probe limits to learn what's real. Tests are not always malicious, they are experiments. She pushes edges to see if your calm collapses. This is how patterns get exposed fast. The first probes are small, a late text, a loaded joke, a passive post meant to sting. Those small moves check whether old levers still fire. If you flinch, the experiment continues. If you steady, the probing loses signal. Tests reveal two truths: where your line sits and whether you built it yourself. Boundaries invented in reaction are flimsy. Boundaries chosen from a place of purpose hold. When you enforce limits by choice, not by chance, people stop treating you like a variable. That clarity short-circuits manipulation. Don't mistake testing for interest. Sometimes it's curiosity. Sometimes it's fear dressed as challenge. Either way, your response is the data. Respond with noise and you feed the pattern. Respond with composure and you redefine the parameters. Consistency rewrites expectations faster than explanations ever will. The real test happens under pressure. When she escalates, don't mirror the heat. Mirroring validates the tactic. Instead, return to process. Stick to slow responses and short replies. Let lifestyle outrank debate. When your calendar and habits matter more than a mood, you move from negotiable to notable. This phase separates the performative from the committed. People who were rehearsing affection will fade under scrutiny. Those who were steady remain. You are not punishing showmanship. You are filtering for depth. The result is cleaner company and fewer crises. Accountability becomes visible. Small inconsistencies become large red flags. Promises without pattern are empty. Apologies that don't translate into different behavior mean the lesson was not learned. Use evidence as your policy. Reward change that demonstrates itself in time, not in urgent declarations. Testing also checks your self-governance. The urge to correct misinterpretation can be strong. Fight it by measuring outcomes, not impressions. If a choice protects your mission, it passes the test. If a reaction buys back temporary calm at the cost of routine, it fails long-term. Respect is the currency of these trials. Respect comes when people see that your word and your schedule match. Respect is earned by holding to your code even when pressure mounts. That's how influence compounds. Small acts of fidelity to your standards add up. Finally, truth surfaces. The tests strip away performance and leave essence. You learn who values stability and who values stimulation. You discover who grows when responsibility appears and who runs when accountability knocks. The truth is not a verdict to be celebrated. It's a tool to shape where you invest next. Stand firm in this season. Let probes become proofs of character. Respond with practices, not speeches. When you pass these tests, your life aligns with people who can meet you there. That alignment is the real reward. Hold space for growth, not rescue. Demand behavior that matches words. Celebrate steady increments. Over time, those increments become identity. Your boundaries then become the architecture for better relationships and clearer futures. Let truth guide your next investments. True silence fills a room with presence that words never manage. It becomes an argument you cannot refute because it simply exists. When you stop chasing, your absence stops being empty and starts carrying meaning. People feel the gap like a pressure change. Some step closer, others recoil. That pressure reveals preference. Absence teaches contrast. Once your attention is no longer automatic, the distinction between what was incidental and what was essential sharpens. Casual interactions lose weight. Memories that felt ordinary gain context. The moments when you showed up without drama now look like rare currency. That contrast reframes attraction. Consistency speaks louder than intention. Habitual calm becomes a standard that other people measure themselves against. They begin to compare what they have to the steadiness you embody. That comparison either inspires better behavior or exposes insufficiency. Either outcome moves the relationship forward or clears space for better fits. When your quiet has form, curiosity replaces control. She will wonder who you are beyond reaction. Questions shift from "can I get him back?" to "do I want what he represents?" That inward shift is the start of real evaluation. It's subtler than drama but deeper. Your silence also tests legacy. People remember how they were treated. Absence gives memory room to work without interruptions. The recollection of your composure grows into a standard memory that others carry into new choices. It becomes part of the narrative they tell themselves about what stability feels like. Power without spectacle is magnetic because it is rare. Most influence is loud. Quiet influence is compact and dense. When someone notices that you aren't performative, they either respect the restraint or they walk away. Either reaction is useful. One aligns, the other frees you from needless maintenance. Notice how interactions change tone. Messages stop demanding and start requesting. Attempts to provoke give way to tentative outreach. That tentative tone reveals uncertainty in the other person, and uncertainty is fertile ground for self-reflection. You don't have to pry, the atmosphere does the pulling. Boundaries become defaults, not tactics. People learn not to expect emergency access to your attention. That default makes relationship economics simpler. Exchanges are clearer. When presence is earned, reciprocity looks more honest. You will be misread at times. Some call composure disinterest. Let them misread. Misinterpretation weeds out those who needed you as an emotional instrument. The ones who remain are those who value you as a steady presence, not a tool. Over time, the quiet accumulates authority. It makes your life easier because fewer crises require your energy. Your calendar stops being hostage to someone else's mood. Free time becomes actual free time, not a gap patched by apologies and explanations. The final effect is subtle and long-lasting. People who knew your temper settle into a new understanding of you. They adjust. Some return with steadier versions of themselves, others do not. Both results validate your choice. The silence remaps your world toward people who can meet the standard you now live by. The future favors those who protect their peace fiercely. This is the new rhythm you built, one that does not bend for drama or explanation. Life simplifies when you stop servicing other people's emotional machines. Your calendar fills with commitments that matter. Time once lost to clarifying disputes now goes into momentum. Quiet routines replace frantic fixes. You speak when necessary and move the rest into action. People notice efficiency. Attraction follows competence more reliably than spectacle. You no longer measure success by immediate feedback. Small wins compound into direction. When paths cross again, interactions feel different because both parties changed. Encounters are precise and weighted by purpose. You no longer rehearse affection for approval. Instead, you demonstrate consistency through habits. That demonstration costs nothing to boast about but everything in integrity. New standards become the norm for those who stay. Old dynamics wither under new expectations. The man you become is not built from reaction. He is crafted by repetition. This era reframes desire. People recall steadiness the same way they remember a steady hand in a storm. Memory reshapes longing into respect. Romance that once depended on drama now seeks stability. Conversations shift from urgent rescue to steady collaboration. When someone returns, they find boundaries that operate like simple rules rather than punishments. Those rules invite reciprocal participation or they filter people out. You attract different company now. Your presence draws those who value predictability and depth. Casual distractions fall away. Partnerships form with clearer intent. Your inner circle mirrors the life you designed. That mirror shows growth, not tolerance for chaos. The quality of attention you accept becomes the quality of your life. Low-energy interactions become rare, and when they occur you treat them like tests, quick and conclusive. Peace becomes active, not passive. It is defended by daily choices and small acts of restraint. Each decision to protect autonomy accumulates into a stronger foundation. Freedom increases as obligations to drama decline. The space you guard becomes productive ground for goals, relationships, and health. You cannot graft purpose onto a frantic life and expect it to thrive. Structure provides the conditions for meaning to grow. Healing follows structure. Wounds closed with time and effort stay shut. You invest in rehabilitation rather than temporary relief. That investment pays compound returns. People who supported growth appreciate it. Those who relied on access do not. Both reactions clarify where to invest next. The simplest tests reveal future partners from past attachments. Eventually, calm becomes reputation. You are recognized for not being shaken. That reputation opens doors that noise never could. Opportunities require trust. Consistency builds trust. Your word becomes law because it is scarce and reliable. Influence without drama is durable. This final chapter is not an ending but a formation. You reshape daily rhythms, safeguard attention, and elevate standards. You move from reacting to curating. The result is a life composed of intention, not reaction. That composition produces a legacy of steadiness that others feel long after you speak. Walk forward with rules, not apologies, and let your life demonstrate the value of choosing peace over chaos. If this message hit home, subscribe, not for motivation but for reminder. A reminder to stay calm, stay grounded, and keep your power where it belongs, with you.